Tonight we open Case File 1, the matter of the smoking room at Caldwell Manor. In November 1932, at an English country estate, three men entered a private room after dinner and two of them walked out. What the official record shows is that Gerald Ashworth died of heart failure sometime during the evening. What it does not show is that the two men who were in that room with him provided accounts so precisely coordinated that no two living witnesses of the same event have ever remembered it the same way. Tonight, Maxwell Vane walks you through the evidence, every account, every contradiction, every moment the trail goes cold and then picks up again in a place neither witness thought to account for. The full case file is waiting for you on Amazon, but first, the archive is open. Let us begin.
Welcome to The Witness Who Said Nothing by the Glitch Bureau. This book covers first-person atmospheric narration, Mac's voice, AI-generated imagery, 10 to 15 minutes runtime. Chapter 1, The Invitation to Caldwell Manor. The invitation arrived on a crisp November morning, its weighty paper and elegant script a testament to the grandeur of Caldwell Manor. As I, Sarah Langley, held it in my hands, memories of my previous visits unfurled like autumn leaves. Each visit had been an exploration of tradition and subtle decay, a dance of opulence and secrets. This time, the invitation bore the promise of a dinner party, a gathering orchestrated by Eleanor Ashworth, my esteemed colleague on the charitable committee. Caldwell Manor, with its sprawling grounds and ivy-clad walls, stood as a relic of a bygone era. Yet beneath its stately veneer, whispers of untold stories lingered in the air. My anticipation was tinged with curiosity about the evening's guests. Gerald Ashworth, the enigmatic host, was a man of few words but many mysteries. Reginald Farrow, ever charming, often left one wondering about the intentions behind his polished smiles. And then there was Edmund Crane, whose presence seemed wrapped in intrigue. As I prepared for the evening, the chill of rural England in November wrapped around me like a cloak. The manor awaited, promising a night of fine dining and perhaps revelations. I pondered the alliances and tensions that might surface, the undercurrents that would ripple through the evening. Each guest, each interaction, was a thread in the tapestry of the night. Little did I know, the observations I would make would linger, questions unasked and answers unspoken, weaving a narrative only I could see. The misty lanes of rural England seemed to stretch endlessly as the car wound its way towards Caldwell Manor. The November evening wrapped itself around the landscape like a shroud, with fog clinging to the hedgerows, whispering secrets only the night could understand. Sarah Langley peered through the windshield, her focus divided between the road ahead and the thoughts swirling in her mind. As the car crested a gentle rise, the manor came into view, its silhouette imposing against the dimming sky. Caldwell Manor, with its grandeur slightly faded by time, stood like a sentinel of history. The stone facade, weathered yet majestic, spoke of an era where tradition reigned supreme, hinting at the secrets buried within its walls. Sarah felt a shiver of anticipation, mingled with a touch of foreboding, as she pulled up to the entrance. Stepping out of the car, the chill of the evening air enveloped her, a stark contrast to the warmth she anticipated inside. The heavy oak doors of the manor creaked open, revealing a world of warmth and light. The grand fireplace crackled invitingly in the entrance hall, casting flickering shadows that danced across the polished wood floors. The scent of beeswax and aged leather filled the air, mingling with the soft murmur of distant conversations. It was a sensory tapestry that drew Sarah in, wrapping her in its embrace. Gerald Ashworth, the evening's host, greeted her with a charm that was both welcoming and enigmatic. His presence was commanding, his hospitality genuine, yet Sarah sensed an undercurrent of complexity beneath his polished exterior. Their conversation was polite, the words exchanged layered with unspoken tension, hinting at the intricacies of the evening yet to unfold. As more guests arrived, the atmosphere shifted subtly, the dynamics of the group beginning to take shape. Reginald Farrow made his entrance, exuding a confidence that bordered on theatrical. Sarah observed his interactions with the other guests, noting the subtle power plays and alliances forming beneath the surface. He was a man who wore his intentions like a well-fitted suit, yet there was an undercurrent of mystery about him that intrigued her. Edmund Crane, by contrast, was a study in reserved mystery. His demeanor was quiet, almost contemplative, a stark contrast to the more flamboyant guests. Sarah found her gaze drawn to him repeatedly, noting his frequent glances at the mantelpiece clock. There was a significance to his actions, a silent countdown ticking away in his mind, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself reflecting on the events so far. The warmth of the manor, the intricate dance of conversation, and the subtle tensions that simmered beneath the surface all contributed to a growing sense of unease. It was as if the manor itself was watching, waiting for something to happen. Her curiosity was piqued, tempered by a sense of foreboding that she couldn't quite shake. The transition to the dinner party was seamless, the narrative flowing effortlessly from the introductions to the main event. The dining room was a picture of elegance, the table set with gleaming silverware and crystal glasses that caught the light in a kaleidoscope of colors. The guests took their seats, the anticipation palpable as the first course was served. Sarah's attention was drawn to Reginald Farrow once more, as he excused himself from the table during the pause between courses. His absence was noted, the empty chair a silent testament to his departure. When he returned, Sarah's gaze fell upon his hands. They were clean, almost unnaturally so, the skin dry and slightly reddened as if they had been scrubbed. It was a detail she filed away without quite knowing why, a puzzle piece that would later fall into place. As the evening continued, Sarah's attention shifted to Edmund Crane. His repeated glances at the mantelpiece clock during dessert were deliberate, each glance a marker in time that only he understood. At 11 minutes past 9, there was a subtle shift in his posture, a settling that spoke of a man who had been waiting for a specific moment. It was a detail that resonated with Sarah, a silent signal that something significant had occurred. The evening continued to unfold, the conversations flowing effortlessly as the guests moved from the dining room to the smoking room. Sarah found herself passing the smoking room doorway twice, each time noting the decanter on the side table. The first time, it was 2/3 full, the amber liquid catching the lamplight in a warm glow. The second time, the fill level was different, higher than before. It was a subtle change, but one that caught her attention, raising questions about the events of the evening. 3 days later, Sarah found herself reflecting on the evening, piecing together the puzzle of what she had observed. The clean hands, the clock watcher, the wrong decanter, all details that refused to fit the official narrative. As she sat at her writing desk, the weight of her observations pressed heavily upon her. She was not a detective, nor was she a suspect. She was simply a witness, an observer of the evening's events, and yet she felt a responsibility to make sense of what she had seen. As she considered her observations, a sense of unease settled over her. She knew what she had seen, but she couldn't prove what it meant. The official investigation had concluded, the questions asked and answered, yet Sarah felt that something had been overlooked. Her observations were pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit neatly into the picture that had been painted. In the quiet of her study, Sarah addressed the viewer directly, her words measured and precise. She had told them what she saw, but she could not tell them what it meant. There was a man, she said, who did not require proof at the moment of observation. He required only the behavioral detail and the patience to follow it to its conclusion. That man had the full account, and it was waiting on Amazon for those who wished to explore the complete story. As she closed her journal, the weight of her observations still pressing upon her, Sarah reflected on her role as a witness. She had not lied to the official investigation when she said she had a pleasant evening. At the time, she had not yet reconstructed the significance of what she had seen. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, she understood the importance of her observations. They were the key to unlocking the mystery of that evening, and she hoped that someone, somewhere, would be able to see what she had seen and draw the conclusions she could not. As Sarah Langley approached the grand iron gates of Caldwell Manor, the November chill seeped through the fabric of her coat, causing an involuntary shiver. The gravel crunched under her sensible heeled shoes, each step echoing in the hushed, expectant silence that surrounded the manor. There was something about Caldwell Manor that always seemed to whisper secrets, its imposing structure a testament to both opulence and the inevitable decay brought by time. She paused at the gates, allowing herself a moment to reflect on her past visits, each one marked by a different season, yet always shadowed by the manor's enigmatic aura. Standing there, Sarah's thoughts drifted to Eleanor Ashworth, her dear friend and fellow committee member. Eleanor, with her warmth and vivacity, was a stark contrast to the cold, imposing presence of the manor. Her philanthropic endeavors had often brought Sarah to these grounds, and she marveled at how Eleanor navigated the complex family dynamics within, seemingly unaffected by the manor's brooding presence. Sarah wondered about the evening ahead, her mind a swirl of anticipation and curiosity. With a deep breath, she pushed open the gates and began her walk up the path, lined with dormant rose bushes whose thorny branches seemed a fitting metaphor for the hidden tensions she sensed in the air. Each visit to Caldwell Manor had been different, yet the undercurrent of intrigue remained constant, as if the manor itself was a living entity steeped in history and mystery. As she stepped inside, the warmth of the manor enveloped her, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. The familiar scent of polished wood mingled with the faint aroma of Earl Grey tea, a comforting reminder of past gatherings. Sarah's eyes scanned the entrance hall, taking in the portraits of Ashworth ancestors, their eyes following her as if guarding the family's secrets. The manor was alive with history, its walls echoing with stories untold. Sarah's anticipation grew as she thought of Gerald Ashworth, the evening's elusive host. His charm masked a deeper complexity, and Sarah recalled their past interactions, each conversation a careful dance around unspoken truths. She was curious about Gerald's intentions for the evening and the underlying tensions she expected to observe. Her resolve to remain observant, to notice the details others might overlook, was strong as she ascended the staircase, her heart beating with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The evening was set to unfold in the grand dining room, a space that seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the stories it would witness. As Sarah took her place at the table, the ambience of the room enveloped her, a blend of candlelight flickering against the polished silverware and the soft murmur of conversation. She noted the guests around her, their interactions subtle yet revealing, each one a piece of the evening's intricate puzzle. It was during the pause between the fish course and the main that Sarah first noticed something amiss. Reginald Farrow, seated directly opposite her, excused himself from the table. His absence was marked by the empty chair, a void that shifted the dynamics of the conversation. Sarah found herself redirecting a discussion that had been aimed at him, her attention drawn to the empty space he left behind. When Farrow returned, Sarah's eyes were naturally drawn to his hands. They were unusually clean, scrubbed in a manner that suggested more than a simple rinse. The particular dryness of recently washed skin, the faint redness at the knuckles, all pointed to a man who had not simply stepped out for a moment's respite in the garden, especially given the rain that had been falling since late afternoon. This observation lingered in Sarah's mind, a small detail that seemed inconsequential at the time but later grew in significance. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the main course, the clink of cutlery, and the warmth of the dining room drawing her back into the present moment. As dessert was served, Sarah's attention shifted to Edmund Crane. Seated with a clear view of the mantelpiece clock, she noticed him glancing at it repeatedly during the course. The first glance might have been idle, but the second was deliberate. By the third, it was clear to Sarah that Crane was waiting for something specific. The fourth glance, at precisely 11 minutes past 9, was accompanied by a subtle shift in his posture, a settling that spoke of a man whose internal countdown had reached its mark. Sarah's habit of tracking the attention of those around her, honed over years of committee meetings, made this observation stand out. It was as if Crane was timing the evening against a predetermined schedule, and Sarah couldn't help but wonder what significance 11 minutes past 9 held for him. The evening continued, the atmosphere in the room a blend of conviviality and underlying tension. As the gentlemen retired to the smoking room, Sarah found herself reflecting on the evening's events. Her mind drifted back to an earlier moment, just before dinner, when she had passed the smoking room doorway. The door had been ajar, and she had glimpsed a decanter on the side table, approximately two-thirds full, its amber liquid catching the lamplight. Later that evening, as she passed the same doorway, something about the decanter struck her as different. The fill level was higher, an impossibility that nagged at the edges of her mind. A decanter does not refill itself, and this subtle change, unnoticed by others, lingered with her long after the evening concluded. 3 days later, as Sarah sat at her writing desk, she replayed the evening in her mind, piecing together the puzzle of her observations. The clean hands, the clock watcher, the wrong decanter, each detail a thread in the tapestry of the night's events. Yet, despite her clarity in recalling these observations, she struggled with the knowledge that they did not fit the official narrative. The investigation had concluded, but Sarah's questions remained. In her heart, she knew that what she had seen did not align with the conclusions drawn by those who had questioned her. They had asked if she had a pleasant evening, and she had said yes, not lying at the time. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, she understood the weight of what she had witnessed, even if she couldn't prove its significance. The evening's events had left her with unanswered questions, a sense of unease that only deepened with each passing day. She knew there was a man, someone with the patience and expertise to unravel the threads she had observed, to follow them to their conclusion. That man held the full account, the answers that eluded her, waiting to be discovered by those willing to delve deeper. As Sarah closed her journal, the pen resting beside it, she felt a sense of completion, even if her questions remained. She had told her story, shared her observations, and now it was up to others to decide what they meant. The answers lay beyond her reach, but she had done her part, setting the stage for the truth to be uncovered. Chapter 2. The dinner party unfolds. The grand dining hall of Caldwell Manor shimmered under the glow of flickering candlelight, casting a dance of shadows across the polished silverware. The air was thick with the scent of roasted pheasant, mingling with the floral notes of Eleanor Ashworth's prized arrangements. As I took my seat, the elegant clatter of cutlery and the gentle hum of conversation enveloped me. From my vantage point, I observed the guests, each interaction a subtle play of civility, masking deeper currents. Reginald Farrow, seated opposite, was engaged in animated discussion with Lord Whitmore, yet there was a tension in his posture, a stiffness that belied his outward charm. To his right, Edmund Crane's eyes flickered towards the mantelpiece clock, a gesture so brief it might have gone unnoticed by anyone less attuned to the nuances of social gatherings. The evening unfolded with an undercurrent of unease, a delicate balance of elegance and unspoken discord. The laughter was a touch too bright, the smiles a shade too fixed. My attention flitted from one guest to another, cataloging each glance, each pause, each shift in tone. The alliances and rivalries, though unspoken, were palpable, weaving a complex tapestry of human dynamics. As dessert was served, the room seemed to hold its breath, each guest a player in an intricate dance of conversation and hidden motives. It was in these moments that the true nature of the evening revealed itself, not in grand gestures, but in the subtle interplay of words and silences. The dinner party was not merely a social event. It was a stage where the true drama of human interaction played out, setting the scene for the revelations yet to come. The soft glow of candlelight flickered gently against the polished silverware, casting elongated shadows that danced across the tablecloth like whispers of secrets yet to be told. The atmosphere at Caldwell Manor was one of elegance, but beneath the surface, subtle tensions and alliances were weaving a complex tapestry of intrigue. As I, Sarah Langley, sat at the dinner table, my senses were heightened, capturing every nuance of the evening with a clarity that only hindsight could sharpen. The clink of china and the muted rustle of silk gowns filled the air as guests settled into their places, each movement deliberate, each smile calculated. My gaze traveled around the table, noting the interplay of social dynamics that seemed to ripple through the room like an undercurrent. It was in this setting that I began to notice the subtle cues that hinted at deeper stories beneath the surface. Across the table, Gerald Ashworth hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding to a comment from Eleanor, his wife. It was a pause so brief that it might have gone unnoticed by anyone else, but to me, it suggested an unspoken discord between them. Eleanor's eyes lingered on Reginald Farrow a moment too long, a glance that spoke of a past connection, adding complexity to the evening's dynamics. Reginald, engaged in animated conversation with Edmund Crane, exuded a competitive edge that hinted at a long-standing rivalry. Their exchange was lively, yet beneath the surface, I sensed an unspoken contest of wills, each man striving to outdo the other. It was a delicate dance of words and gestures, a social chess game played with the utmost decorum. As the dinner progressed, I became increasingly aware of the subtle shifts in the room. Edmund's glances towards the mantelpiece clock became more frequent, each one more deliberate than the last. It was as if he were counting down to some unseen event, a preoccupation that tugged at the edges of my awareness. The atmosphere was thick with an undercurrent of unease, as if the very air were charged with secrets waiting to be uncovered. My observations were interwoven with reflections on the nature of perception and truth. How often do we wear masks of politeness, concealing our true intentions beneath a veneer of charm? The dinner party was more than just a social gathering. It was a stage on which the true nature of each guest was revealed, if only one knew where to look. As the evening unfolded, alliances formed and dissolved in the blink of an eye. I noted the fleeting alliances forged over shared laughter and the subtle shifts in loyalty as conversations ebbed and flowed. It was a social dance where every word and gesture was laden with meaning, a performance that required keen observation to decipher. The clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of voices filled the room as the main course was served. It was then that I noticed Reginald Farrow excusing himself from the table. His absence was unremarkable at first, but when he returned, I couldn't help but notice his hands. They were clean in the manner of hands that have been washed, rather than hands that have simply not touched anything. The particular dryness of recently scrubbed skin, the faint redness at the knuckles, suggested he had not been in the garden, as he claimed. His absence had been precisely 11 minutes, a detail that lodged itself in my mind with stubborn persistence. Where had he been? What had he done during those minutes? It was a question that would linger long after the evening had ended. As dessert was served, my attention shifted to Edmund Crane. His repeated glances at the clock intrigued me, each one more deliberate than the last. At 11 minutes past 9, his posture shifted subtly, a fractional settling that spoke of a man whose internal countdown had reached the number he was waiting for. What significance did this moment hold for him? It was a question that added another layer to the evening's mysteries. Later, as the gentleman retired to the smoking room, I passed the doorway and noticed the decanter on the side table. Earlier in the evening, I had seen a similar decanter, 2/3 full, catching the lamplight in a way that was almost poetic. Now it was nearly full, a subtle change that seemed impossible unless the decanter had been replaced. This observation, like the others, was filed away in my mind, a puzzle piece that did not yet fit. 3 days after the dinner, I found myself reflecting on these observations, piecing together the fragments of the evening's interactions into a cohesive narrative. The official investigation had reached its conclusion, but I was not satisfied. Not because I suspected anyone, but because the 3 things I had observed did not fit neatly within the official account. Reginald's clean hands, Edmund's clock watching, and the wrong decanter were details that refused to be ignored. They were fragments of a story that had not been fully told, pieces of a puzzle that hinted at a truth obscured by the facade of politeness and charm. The dinner party at Caldwell Manor was more than a mere social gathering. It was a stage upon which the true nature of each guest was revealed, if only one knew where to look. I had been an observer, a witness to the subtle tensions and alliances that shaped the evening's events. And though I could not prove what I believed those observations meant, I knew that they were significant. As I sat at my writing desk, pen poised above the paper, I realized that the most valuable witness in any investigation is rarely the one the investigation thinks to examine. What is seen and what is reported are 2 entirely different things, and the gap between them is where the truth lives. The evening at Caldwell Manor was a tapestry of intrigue, woven with threads of subtle tension and alliance. It was a dance of words and gestures, a performance that required keen observation to decipher. And though the official investigation had closed, the questions remained. What had I truly witnessed that night? What did it all mean? I had told the official investigation that I had a pleasant evening, and I was not lying. At the time, I had not yet reconstructed the significance of what I saw. But now, 3 days later, the pieces were beginning to fall into place. The dinner party was more than a social gathering. It was a stage upon which the true nature of each guest was revealed, if only one knew where to look. I had been an observer, a witness to the subtle tensions and alliances that shaped the evening's events. And though I could not prove what I believed those observations meant, I knew that they were significant. The truth was there, woven into the fabric of the evening, waiting to be uncovered. The full case file, with all its complexities and revelations, awaited on Amazon. The architecture of that evening, reconstructed one behavioral detail at a time, was waiting to be explored. It was an invitation to delve deeper, to uncover the mysteries that lay beneath the surface, and to discover the answers that eluded the official record. Sarah Langley stood at the edge of the grand dining room, her presence unassuming yet deliberate. Caldwell Manor, with its opulent chandeliers and rich mahogany furniture, provided the perfect backdrop for the evening's gathering. As the guests mingled and exchanged pleasantries, Sarah positioned herself to observe without intrusion, her eyes scanning the room with a practiced ease that belied her true intentions. The evening was a tapestry of subtle gestures and whispered conversations, each interaction a thread that Sarah wove into her mental tapestry of the night. She noted the way Gerald Ashworth, the host, moved through the room with a charm that seemed almost rehearsed. His smile, though genuine, faltered ever so slightly whenever his gaze fell upon his wife, Eleanor. Sarah's keen perception picked up on this unspoken tension, a silent conversation that played out in the flicker of Gerald's eyes. Eleanor Ashworth, poised and regal, commanded attention without uttering a word. Her presence was magnetic, drawing others into her orbit with an ease that spoke of years spent mastering the art of social influence. Sarah watched as Eleanor's gaze lingered on Reginald Farrow, a family friend whose laughter filled the room. Yet beneath his jovial exterior, Sarah sensed a flicker of unease, a momentary lapse in his facade whenever Eleanor's eyes met his. The dinner party unfolded with a rhythm all its own, the clinking of glasses and soft murmur of conversation providing a soundtrack to Sarah's observations. She noted the way Edmund Crane, another guest, engaged in polite conversation while his eyes frequently darted towards the mantelpiece clock. His preoccupation with time intrigued Sarah, leading her to wonder about the significance of the clock's hands as they moved steadily forward. The ambience of Caldwell Manor contributed to the evening's atmosphere of mystery and intrigue. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the room, creating an intimate yet slightly ominous setting. Sarah's senses were heightened, each sound and movement adding to the sensory tapestry she wove in her mind. As the evening progressed, Sarah's internal reflections deepened, revealing her empathy and understanding of human nature. She acknowledged her own biases and preconceptions, recognizing that her observations were colored by her past experiences and relationships with those present. This introspection added a layer of complexity to her character, as she grappled with the weight of her role as an observer who said nothing. Her attention was soon drawn to Reginald Farrow, who excused himself from the table during a pause between courses. Sarah noted his absence, her eyes lingering on the empty chair opposite her, as she redirected a conversation that had been aimed at him. When Farrow returned, Sarah's gaze dropped to his hands, noticing the particular dryness of recently scrubbed skin and the faint redness at his knuckles. These were the hands of a man who had washed them thoroughly, not merely brushed off the garden's dirt as he claimed. In the quiet moments that followed, Sarah's mind turned to Edmund Crane once more. During the dessert course, his repeated glances at the mantelpiece clock captured her attention. The first glance might have been idle, but the subsequent ones were deliberate, each one marking time with a precision that suggested he was waiting for something specific. At 11 minutes past 9, Crane's posture shifted, a subtle settling that signaled the arrival of the moment he had been anticipating. Sarah's observations were like pieces of a puzzle, each one fitting into a larger picture that was still coming into focus. She recalled passing the smoking room doorway earlier that evening, noting the decanter on the side table, its amber liquid catching the lamplight. Later, when she passed the doorway again, the decanter's fill level had changed, a subtle but undeniable difference that lingered in her mind. As the guests prepared to move to the smoking room, Sarah's observations had laid the groundwork for the revelations to come. Her attention to detail had captured the nuances of the evening that others might overlook, setting the stage for the unfolding mystery. The reader, drawn into Sarah's world, was left with a sense of anticipation, eager to see how her observations would play into the larger narrative and what secrets the night held. Reflecting on the evening 3 days later, Sarah grappled with the knowledge that her observations did not fit the official narrative of the investigation. She had not been asked the right questions, and her role as an observer had been overlooked. Yet, she could not shake the feeling that the truth lay in the gaps between what was seen and what was reported. In the quiet solitude of her thoughts, Sarah acknowledged the limitations of her observations and the unanswered questions that remained. She understood that the most valuable witness in any investigation is rarely the one the investigation thinks to examine. Her narrative concluded with an invitation to explore the full case file, where the architecture of that evening, reconstructed one behavioral detail at a time, awaited those who sought the truth. Chapter 3. The Clean Hands Observation. As the dinner unfolded in the grand dining room of Caldwell Manor, the clink of cutlery and soft murmur of conversation created a symphony of evening elegance. Yet amidst this harmony, a discordant note caught my attention. The absence of Reginald Farrow. Positioned directly opposite his empty chair, I found myself redirecting conversation, an unexpected task that made me acutely aware of his departure. When Farrow returned, it was not his presence that intrigued me, but his hands. They were remarkably clean, with a dryness that suggested recent scrubbing rather than mere avoidance of dirt. The faint redness at his knuckles was unmistakable, a detail that seemed trivial yet lingered in my mind. It had been raining since 4, and his claim of a garden stroll did not align with the pristine state of his hands. The warmth of the room, the glow of the chandelier, and the aroma of the main course all faded as I considered this anomaly. It was a moment that, in retrospect, seemed to hold more weight than I initially understood. My mind began to weave threads of suspicion, though I could not yet articulate their significance. The evening, once innocent, now felt charged with unspoken tension, as if the air itself held secrets. As I continued to observe, the pattern became clearer, though elusive. Farrow's clean hands were not just a detail, they were a piece of a puzzle that, at the time, I did not know I was assembling. This seemingly minor observation marked the beginning of a deeper inquiry into the events of that night, an inquiry that would soon reveal the shadows beneath the evening's genteel surface. The grand dining room of Caldwell Manor was a symphony of elegance and opulence, a stage set for an evening that would be remembered not for its culinary delights, but for the enigma it would leave behind. The glow of candlelight played upon the polished surfaces, casting a warm, inviting light that belied the tension simmering beneath the surface. It was a November evening in 1932, and the guests, wrapped in the comfort of their evening attire, engaged in polite conversation, their laughter a gentle murmur against the clinking of cutlery on fine china. Amidst this scene sat Sarah Langley, a woman whose keen observational skills had been honed through years of committee meetings and social gatherings. She was not one to draw attention to herself, preferring instead to watch and listen, filing away details that others might overlook. On this particular evening, her attention was drawn to an empty chair at the table, a chair that should have been occupied by Reginald Farrow. The absence of Farrow was not immediately alarming. In the dance of social engagements, such departures were not uncommon. Yet, as the minutes ticked by, Sarah found herself increasingly aware of the void left by his empty chair. It was not just the lack of his presence, but the subtle shift in the room's energy that caught her attention. Conversations continued, but there was an undercurrent of something unspoken, a tension that Sarah could not quite place. Her mind began to race with possibilities. Farrow's absence could have been due to any number of reasons, yet Sarah felt a nagging sense of unease. She recalled his demeanor earlier in the evening, the way he had engaged in conversation with a casual ease that now seemed almost rehearsed. As she replayed these interactions in her mind, she found herself questioning the authenticity of his earlier joviality. It was then that Farrow returned, slipping into his seat with an air of nonchalance that did little to quell Sarah's curiosity. Her eyes were drawn to his hands, now conspicuously clean, their scrubbed appearance at odds with the rest of the evening's events. It had been raining since the afternoon, and anyone who had ventured into the garden would not have returned with such pristine hands. This detail, seemingly minor, lodged itself in Sarah's mind, a puzzle piece that did not fit. As the dinner progressed, Sarah's observations became more focused. She noted the reactions of the other guests, some of whom seemed oblivious to Farrow's absence, while others exchanged furtive glances, their expressions betraying a shared, unspoken understanding. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of foreboding that Sarah could not shake. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of questions. Why had Farrow left the table? What had he done during his absence? And why were his hands so notably clean? These questions lingered in her mind, creating an undercurrent of suspense that propelled her thoughts forward. She was aware that her observations, while keen, were incomplete, lacking the context needed to form a full picture of the evening's events. As the evening wore on, Sarah's resolve to remain vigilant only strengthened. Her curiosity was piqued, her instincts on high alert. She knew that the answers to her questions might lie in the subtle details she so carefully observed, details that others might dismiss as inconsequential. Yet, she had learned that it was often these very details that held the key to understanding the larger picture. The dinner concluded, and the guests began to disperse, each returning to their own lives, unaware of the mystery that had quietly unfolded in their midst. For Sarah, however, the evening's events were far from over. She knew that she would continue to puzzle over the night's occurrences, piecing together the fragments of her observations in an attempt to uncover the truth. This chapter in Sarah's life was a turning point, a moment that would set the stage for revelations to come. Her observations, though seemingly minor, were laden with significance, inviting readers to join her in her quest for truth. As she sat in the quiet of her room reflecting on the evening, she understood that the answers she sought might not be immediately forthcoming. Yet, she was determined to pursue them, knowing that the truth, once uncovered, would be worth the wait. In the days that followed, Sarah's mind returned again and again to the dinner at Caldwell Manor. The memory of Farrow's clean hands, the subtle shifts in the room's energy, and the reactions of the other guests played on a loop in her thoughts. She knew that these observations, while seemingly disconnected, were part of a larger puzzle, one that she was determined to solve. As she delved deeper into her memories, Sarah began to see connections she had not noticed before. She recalled the way Edmund Crane had watched the clock on the mantelpiece during the dessert course, his glances not those of a man merely checking the time, but of someone waiting for a specific moment to arrive. She remembered the change in his posture, the way he settled into his chair as if a countdown had reached its conclusion. These observations, coupled with her recollection of the decanter in the smoking room, began to form a pattern in Sarah's mind. She remembered passing the doorway to the smoking room twice that evening, noting the change in the decanter's fill level. It was a detail that had seemed insignificant at the time, yet now it stood out in stark relief against the backdrop of the evening's events. Sarah's reflections were interrupted by the realization that she could not keep these observations to herself. She knew that the official investigation had reached its conclusion, yet she was not satisfied with the answers it had provided. There were too many questions left unanswered, too many details that did not fit the narrative that had been presented. With a sense of urgency, Sarah resolved to share her observations with someone who might be able to make sense of them. She knew that she could not prove what she had seen, but she hoped that by sharing her perspective, she might help to uncover the truth. She understood that the most valuable witness in any investigation is rarely the one the investigation thinks to examine. and she was determined to ensure that her observations were not overlooked. As she prepared to reach out to someone who could help, Sarah felt a sense of clarity and purpose. She knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay in her path. She had seen the truth, and now she was determined to uncover it, no matter what it might reveal. This chapter in Sarah's life was just the beginning of a larger story, one that would unfold in ways she could not yet imagine. Her observations, though seemingly minor, held the key to understanding the mystery that had unfolded at Caldwell Manor. And as she set out on her quest for truth, she knew that she was not alone. There were others who would join her on this journey, each bringing their own unique perspective and insights to the table. In the end, Sarah's story is a testament to the power of observation and the importance of paying attention to the details that others might overlook. It is a reminder that the truth is often hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered by those who are willing to look beyond the surface. And as Sarah embarks on her journey, she invites readers to join her, to see the world through her eyes, and to uncover the truth that lies just beneath the surface. As the evening unfolded at Caldwell Manor, the dining room was a sanctuary of warmth and elegance, its atmosphere meticulously curated to envelop the guests in a sense of comfort and hospitality. The soft glow of the chandelier cast a gentle light over the table, where the delicate clinking of cutlery and the low murmur of conversation created a harmonious backdrop. Yet beneath this veneer of tranquility, there was an undercurrent of tension that only the most perceptive could detect. Sarah Langley, seated comfortably among the other guests, was one such person. Her eyes, naturally attuned to the subtleties of social interaction, flitted across the room, capturing the nuances of the evening. She had attended dinners at Caldwell Manor before, but something about this night felt different. It was as if the air itself carried whispers of secrets yet to be revealed. The evening had been progressing smoothly until Reginald Farrow, a man of considerable presence and poise, excused himself from the table. His departure was noted by Sarah, not only because it left an empty chair directly opposite her, but also because it required her to redirect a conversation that had been aimed at him. She watched as he left the room, the fabric of his dinner jacket brushing softly against the doorframe. For 11 minutes, the conversation at the table flowed on, punctuated by laughter and the occasional clink of a glass. Sarah found herself momentarily distracted by a particularly lively debate about the merits of modern art, her attention captured by the passionate exchanges of her fellow diners. Yet, even as she engaged in the discussion, a part of her mind remained tethered to the doorway, waiting for Reginald's return. When he re-entered the dining room, it was as if a subtle shift occurred in the room's dynamics. Reginald moved with the same assured grace as before, but Sarah's eyes were drawn to his hands. They were conspicuously clean, the skin bearing the telltale signs of recent washing, faint redness at the knuckles and a dryness that suggested thorough scrubbing. This detail, seemingly trivial, struck her as odd given the evening's context. Where had he been during those 11 minutes? Sarah's mind began to race, her thoughts a swirling mix of curiosity and apprehension. She recalled the rain that had been falling since late afternoon, a persistent drizzle that would have left any garden excursion a muddy affair. Reginald's hands, however, showed no signs of such an endeavor. The realization that he had not been in the garden, as he might have claimed, planted a seed of doubt in her mind. As the dinner progressed, Sarah observed the subtle shifts in the room's atmosphere. The other guests seemed to sense something amiss as well, though none openly acknowledged it. The conversation continued, but there was an undercurrent of unease, a shared awareness that something was not quite right. Sarah's internal monologue revealed her growing unease. Her keen observational skills, usually a source of amusement in social settings, now felt like a burden. She grappled with the decision of whether to voice her suspicions or remain silent, aware of the potential implications of either choice. The weight of her observations pressed heavily upon her, and she found herself questioning the events of the evening with increasing urgency. The sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the background served as a constant reminder of the passage of time, adding to the urgency of Sarah's need to understand the situation. Each tick seemed to echo in her mind, a countdown to an unknown revelation. She knew that the answers lay hidden in the details, but the pieces of the puzzle eluded her grasp. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah made a conscious decision to keep her observations to herself, at least for the time being. She chose to watch and wait, hoping that more clues would surface in the coming days. This decision marked a turning point in her role as a witness. No longer content to be a passive observer, she resolved to actively participate in unraveling the mysteries of the evening. In this pivotal moment, Sarah's character was further developed through her introspective analysis. Her struggle with the weight of her observations and the implications they might hold added depth to her narrative. The tension in the room, woven with sensory details, created an atmosphere of foreboding that lingered long after the dinner had ended. By the end of the evening, Sarah's observations had laid the groundwork for the unfolding mystery. The clean hands of Reginald Farrow, the subtle shifts in the room's dynamics, and the ticking of the clock all contributed to a sense of anticipation that left her eager to discover what other secrets the evening held. As she retired for the night, Sarah reflected on the events of the evening, her mind a tapestry of images and impressions. She understood that her role as an observer was far from over. The night's mysteries were yet to be unraveled, and she was determined to see them through to their conclusion. The return with clean hands was more than just a momentary observation. It was a catalyst for the unfolding drama that would soon envelop Caldwell Manor. Sarah's keen eye for detail and her willingness to question the status quo would prove invaluable as the story continued to unfold, drawing her deeper into the web of intrigue that surrounded the evening's events. In the quiet solitude of her room, Sarah resolved to remain vigilant, knowing that the truth was often hidden in the spaces between what was seen and what was reported. As the clock ticked on, she prepared herself for the challenges that lay ahead, ready to confront the mysteries that awaited her at Caldwell Manor. Chapter 4: The Clock Watcher Observation. The gentle clinking of dessert spoons against porcelain filled the room, yet my attention was elsewhere. Edmund Crane, seated 2 places down, seemed captivated by the clock perched on the mantelpiece. The first glance could have been casual, but the second was unmistakably deliberate. As I observed him, the room's warm glow from the chandelier did little to ease the growing tension I felt. Crane's third glance confirmed it. He was waiting for something. The air seemed to thicken with each tick of the clock, a metronome marking an unseen countdown. At 11 minutes past 9, he shifted slightly, a subtle settling as if a weight had been lifted or perhaps placed. It was a change so small that only someone attuned to the room's dynamics, as I was, would notice. Consider this scenario: a man at a dinner party, repeatedly checking the time. Not the idle curiosity of a guest, but the precise attention of someone waiting for a significant moment. What could it mean? In retrospect, Crane's actions suggested a schedule, a plan unfolding with each passing minute. It's essential to understand that such details, seemingly insignificant, can weave a tapestry of intent. The clock was not merely an ornament. It was a silent witness to whatever scheme was afoot. My unease grew, yet I could not decipher the full picture then. The evening continued, but the clock's quiet presence lingered in my mind, a reminder of the urgency I felt but could not yet articulate. This method of observation, tracking subtle shifts in behavior, reveals truths that words alone cannot convey. The implications of Crane's actions left me with a sense of urgency, a puzzle piece that did not fit within the evening's official narrative. The glow of candlelight flickered across the grand dining room of Caldwell Manor, casting a warm, golden hue over the assembled guests. The air was rich with the scent of decadent desserts, and the gentle murmur of polite conversation filled the space. Yet, amidst this elegant setting, my attention was singularly drawn to Edmund Crane, whose peculiar behavior during the dessert course had captured my interest. Seated with a view that allowed me to observe both Crane and the clock on the mantelpiece, I noticed his eyes flickering towards the timepiece with a frequency that seemed deliberate rather than casual. Each glance was laden with a sense of anticipation, as if he were waiting for a precise moment to arrive. This behavior was not lost on me, and I felt a growing unease. a tension that coiled within me like a spring ready to snap. As I sat there, the clock's steady ticking seemed to synchronize with my racing thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was unfolding, something that required my attention and understanding. My mind drifted back to previous encounters with Crane, sifting through fragments of conversations and gestures that now seemed to hold new meaning. Crane's demeanor was usually animated, his eyes lively and engaging, but tonight they were clouded with a guarded intensity, a subtle shift that did not escape my notice. I attempted to engage him in conversation, hoping to glean some insight into his preoccupation. However, his responses were measured and non-committal, revealing little about the thoughts that occupied his mind. The dessert plates were cleared, and my sense of urgency intensified. Time was slipping away, and the unanswered questions loomed large in my mind. The clock's ticking became a metronome for my thoughts, each tick a reminder of the mystery that hung in the air. As the clock struck the hour, I observed a fleeting moment of relief cross Crane's features. It was a subtle change, but one I captured with the precision of a photographer. This was a crucial piece of the puzzle, a moment that I committed to memory as I continued my quest to unravel the evening's secrets. Reflecting on Crane's glances and the tension that filled the room, I couldn't help but feel that the evening was a tapestry of hidden meanings and unspoken truths. My observations, meticulous and detailed, were threads in this tapestry, each one contributing to the unfolding mystery. In the days that followed, I replayed the events of the evening in my mind, piecing together the fragments of what I had witnessed. The official investigation had reached its conclusion, but I was not satisfied. There were three things I had observed that did not fit within the narrative they had constructed. First, there was Reginald Farrow's absence from the table, his return marked by unusually clean hands. I had noted the absence because I was seated opposite his empty chair, redirecting a conversation that had been meant for him. When he returned, the cleanliness of his hands struck me, clean in the manner of hands that had been washed rather than simply untouched by dirt. The redness at his knuckles suggested recent scrubbing, a detail that lingered in my mind. Farrow's absence had lasted precisely 11 minutes, a window during which the smoking room was unoccupied. It was during this time that he could have prepared the decanter, washing his hands before rejoining the dinner. This detail, seemingly minor at the time, now held a weight of significance. Second, there was Crane's behavior during the dessert course. His repeated glances at the clock were not the idle checks of a man noting the hour. They were deliberate, each glance building upon the last, culminating in a change in his posture at 11 minutes past 9. This was the physical register of a man whose internal countdown had reached the moment he had been waiting for. Crane's timing suggested a predetermined schedule, a plan that required precision. The tonic had been prepared, the mechanism set, and the evening needed only to proceed as planned. This understanding, while not conclusive, added another layer to the mystery. Finally, there was the matter of the decanter. During the pre-dinner drinks, I had passed the smoking room and noted the decanter on the side table, its amber liquid catching the light. Later, when the gentleman retired, I passed the room again and observed the same decanter, but with a different fill level. It was higher, an impossibility for a decanter that does not refill itself. This replacement of the decanter suggested a deliberate act, a substitution made during Farrow's absence. The original had been removed, and the replacement was in place before the evening concluded. This was the preparation that had set the stage for the events that followed. 3 days after the dinner, I found myself reflecting on these observations, struggling with the knowledge that what I had seen did not align with the official narrative. I was not a detective, nor was I the killer. I was an observer, a witness to details that had been overlooked by the investigation. As I sat at my writing desk, the lamp casting a warm glow over the pages of my journal, I realized that I could not prove what I believed these observations meant. Yet there was a man, Maxwell Vane, who could. He did not require proof in the traditional sense. He needed only the behavioral details and the patience to follow them to their conclusion. The full account, the architecture of that evening, reconstructed one behavioral detail at a time, was waiting on Amazon. My role was to share what I had seen, to invite others to explore the full case file and discover the truth that lay hidden within the details. I should have told the official investigation about the decanter, but they never asked me what I saw when I passed that doorway. They only asked if I had a pleasant evening, and at the time, I had not yet reconstructed the significance of what I had observed. I told them I did, and I was not lying. Not then. Now, as I close my journal and set down my pen, I understand the importance of what I witnessed. The evening at Caldwell Manor was a tapestry of hidden meanings, each thread contributing to a mystery that demanded resolution. The answer was within reach, waiting for those who sought to unravel the secrets of that night. 3 days have passed since the dinner party at Caldwell Manor, and I find myself seated at my writing desk, pen poised over an open journal. The lamp's warm amber glow casts a comforting light across the pages, yet my thoughts are anything but settled. I attended as a guest, not a suspect, not an investigator. Yet, in the quiet aftermath of Gerald Ashworth's untimely death, I am left with 3 observations that refuse to fit neatly into the official narrative. I am not claiming to know what happened that night. I am merely here to recount what I saw. The distinction, I assure you, is significant. Allow me to share these details, and perhaps you will discern their meaning. As the evening unfolded, the dining room was a tableau of elegance, the table set for 8 beneath the soft glow of a single chandelier. The clink of cutlery and the murmur of polite conversation filled the air. It was during the pause between the fish course and the main that Reginald Farrow excused himself. I noted his absence because his empty chair was directly opposite mine, and I found myself redirecting a conversation that had been aimed at him. 11 minutes later, Farrow returned, and it was then that I noticed his hands. They were impeccably clean, scrubbed in a way that suggested a recent washing rather than a mere avoidance of dirt. The dryness of his skin and the faint redness at his knuckles were telling. He had not been in the garden, as he claimed. It had been raining since the afternoon. He had been somewhere with a basin. In retrospect, I understand that Farrow used those 11 minutes to access the smoking room, a window of time when the room was unoccupied, and the household staff were otherwise engaged with the dinner service. It was during this interval that he prepared the decanter, washed his hands, and returned to his seat, seamlessly resuming the evening's proceedings. The memory of his empty chair and his returning presence is etched in my mind, each sensory detail vivid and precise. I have thought about those hands every day since they found him. I cannot stop thinking about where he had been. As the evening progressed to the dessert course, my attention was drawn to Edmund Crane, seated within my sightline to both himself and the mantelpiece clock. Over the course of 12 minutes, Crane checked the clock 4 times. The first glance might have been idle, but the second was deliberate. The third confirmed my suspicions, and the fourth, at precisely 11 minutes past 9, resulted in a discernible change in his posture. It was a fractional settling, the kind of physical register one observes in a man whose internal countdown has reached its culmination. In retrospect, Crane was timing the evening against a predetermined schedule. At 11 minutes past 9, something had either transpired or was about to, an event that required his attention before the gentleman retired to the smoking room. The tonic had been prepared, the mechanism set, and the remainder of the evening simply needed to unfold. As I recount Crane's 4 glances, I pause longer than I have before. I do not know what 11 minutes past 9 meant to Edmund Crane. I know it meant something, and I know the shape of a man who has been waiting for a specific moment and has just been told it has arrived. It was earlier in the evening, during the pre-dinner drinks, that I passed the smoking room doorway on my way back from the cloakroom. The door was ajar, and I glimpsed the side table with a decanter sitting upon it, approximately 2/3 full, the amber liquid catching the lamplight. I registered it as one does any pleasant domestic detail and continued to the drawing room. Later that evening, when the gentleman retired, I passed the doorway again. The decanter was the same shape, but the fill level was different, higher than it had been. A decanter does not refill itself between pre-dinner drinks and the after-dinner port. The decanter had been replaced. The one I saw at 6:45 was the original, The one I saw later that evening was the preparation. During his 11-minute absence, Farrow had substituted the decanter containing Ashworth's customary tonic with one he had prepared in advance. The original was removed, and the replacement was in place before the dinner concluded. Ashworth drank from the replacement before anyone left the smoking room that night. This realization, in its stark simplicity, hangs in the air as I recount the memory of passing the doorway twice. A decanter does not refill itself. The impossibility remains. Now, as I sit here, I am left with these observations: the clean hands, the clock watcher, the wrong decanter. Each a piece of a puzzle that does not fit the official conclusion. I have told you what I saw. I have not told you what it means because I cannot prove what it means. But there is a man who does not require proof at the moment of observation. He requires only the behavioral detail and the patience to follow it to its conclusion. That man has the full account. It is waiting on Amazon. I should have told the official investigation about the decanter, but they never asked me what I saw when I passed that doorway. They only asked me if I had a pleasant evening. I told them I did. I was not lying. Not then. Chapter 5: The Wrong Decanter Observation. As I retrace the steps of that evening, one detail refuses to fade: the decanter in the smoking room. Twice I passed that room. Each time the scene etched itself into my mind with a clarity that now seems almost forensic. The first time during the pre-dinner drinks, the door was ajar, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over a decanter, 2/3 full, its amber hue inviting against the backdrop of polished wood. Later, as the gentleman retired, I passed again. The room was unchanged, yet the decanter was not. Its fill level was higher, a subtle but undeniable difference. This observation, so innocuous at first, now looms large in my memory, a symbol of the evening's mysteries. How could a decanter refill itself? It was as if the room whispered secrets that only I had paused to hear. In the days since, I've pondered this discrepancy. It haunts me, this image of the decanter, a tangible representation of the secrets hidden in plain sight. What did this change signify? I cannot yet articulate its meaning, but I know it matters. The pieces of the puzzle are falling into place, though the final picture remains elusive. As I narrate these events, I realize the significance of what I witnessed. Yet, I am left with questions that beg for answers. This chapter in my memory is unresolved, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The full account, with its implications, is out there, waiting for those who seek to understand. Perhaps the answers lie within the pages of a case file, a story yet to be fully told. As the clock struck 9, the corridors of Caldwell Manor whispered with the echoes of a bygone era. The walls, adorned with portraits of stern ancestors, seemed to lean in, eager to hear the secrets of the evening unfold. I sat at my writing desk, the soft glow of a lamp casting a warm amber light over the open journal before me. My hand hesitated above the page, the pen poised to capture the intricacies of a night that had etched itself into my memory with an unsettling clarity. 3 days had passed since the dinner party, yet the events of that evening played over and over in my mind like a film reel stuck on a loop. I was not a suspect, nor was I an investigator. I was merely a guest, a woman with a penchant for noticing the small details others might overlook, and it was those details that now refused to let me rest. 3 moments, 3 observations, each as vivid as the last, yet none of them fitting neatly into the official narrative that had already closed like a book with missing pages. My connection to Caldwell Manor was through Eleanor Ashworth, a dear friend and the gracious hostess of the evening. I had attended 2 previous dinners at the manor, each as splendid as the last, but this one was different. This time, the air crackled with a tension that seemed to hum just below the surface of polite conversation and clinking glasses. I could not have known then that Gerald Ashworth would be found dead the following morning, nor that the investigation would conclude so swiftly, leaving me with more questions than answers. The evening began as many such gatherings do, with a flurry of greetings and the clatter of fine china. The dining room was a tableau of elegance, the table set for 8 with gleaming silverware and crisp white linens. I found myself seated opposite Reginald Farrow, a man whose presence was as commanding as his reputation. It was during the pause between the fish course and the main that I first noticed something amiss. Reginald excused himself from the table, his chair left conspicuously empty amidst the animated chatter. I watched as the conversation shifted to fill the void, yet my attention remained fixated on that vacant seat. When he returned, it was not his presence that drew my gaze, but his hands. They were clean in a way that suggested recent scrubbing, the skin dry and the knuckles faintly red. A man who claimed to have been in the garden should not have hands that bore the marks of a basin, especially on a night when the rain had drenched the grounds since late afternoon. In retrospect, those 11 minutes of his absence took on a new significance. The smoking room had been unoccupied, the household staff occupied with the dinner service. It was the perfect window for Reginald to prepare the decanter, to set the stage for what was to follow. The memory of his hands haunted me, a detail that refused to be dismissed, yet one I had not shared with the investigators. They had not asked the right questions, and I had not volunteered the information. As dessert was served, my attention shifted to Edmund Crane, seated with a clear view of the mantelpiece clock. It was a habit of mine, developed over years of committee meetings, to track the attention of those around me. Edmund's glances at the clock were not idle. The first might have been, but the subsequent 3 were deliberate, each glance a marker of time passing with purpose. When the clock's hands reached 11 minutes past 9, I noted a change in his posture, a settling that spoke of anticipation fulfilled. What did that moment mean to Edmund? I could not say with certainty, but I knew it meant something significant. It was the physical register of a man whose internal countdown had reached its conclusion. Perhaps at that moment, the mechanism was set, the evening's events aligned with a precision that only he understood. Again, it was a detail that lingered with me, unshared and unexplored by those who sought answers. The third observation came as the evening drew to a close. Earlier, during the pre-dinner drinks, I had passed the doorway to the smoking room. The door was ajar, and I glimpsed a decanter on the side table, its amber contents catching the light. It was a pleasant domestic detail, one I registered and promptly forgot. But later, as the gentleman retired to the smoking room, I passed by again. The decanter was the same shape, but the fill level was different, higher than it had been earlier. A decanter does not refill itself between the pre-dinner drinks and the after-dinner port. In the quiet of my room, the implications of these observations unfurled like a tapestry, each thread connecting to the next in a pattern I could not ignore. The original decanter had been replaced, the substitution made during Reginald's absence. Gerald Ashworth had poured from the replacement, a fact that now seemed laden with ominous significance. As I sat there, pen in hand, I realized the weight of what I had seen. I could not prove what these observations meant, yet I felt their importance with every fiber of my being. The official investigation had concluded, satisfied with its findings, but I was not. There was a man, Maxwell Vane, who did not require proof at the moment of observation. He required only the behavioral detail and the patience to follow it to its conclusion. His account, the complete architecture of that evening, awaited those who sought the truth. I closed my journal, the pen set down beside it. The lamp burned lower, casting long shadows across the room. I had said what needed to be said, shared the observations that had haunted me since that fateful night. Yet the question remained, unanswered and unresolved. I had told the investigators I had a pleasant evening, and at the time it was not a lie. But now, in the quiet of reflection, I understood the depth of what I had witnessed. The answer, the full account, was waiting on Amazon. The story did not end here with my observations. It continued, a complex tapestry of intrigue and deception, waiting to be unraveled by those willing to look beyond the surface. I should have told the official investigation about the decanter, about the hands, about the clock. But they never asked me what I saw when I passed that doorway. They only asked if I had a pleasant evening. I told them I did. I was not lying. Not then. The decanter's change. The rain had been a persistent companion to the evening, drumming softly against the leaded windows of Caldwell Manor. The warmth of the dining room, however, offered a stark contrast, enveloping the guests in a cocoon of comfort and elegance. I remember the clink of cutlery and the gentle murmur of conversation as if it were yesterday. Yet, it's the peculiarities of that night that have lingered in my mind. weaving themselves into a tapestry of intrigue and unanswered questions. As I sit here, 3 days after the dinner party, I find myself replaying the evening's events with a clarity that only hindsight can provide. I was a guest, not a suspect, and certainly not an investigator. But I have always been an observer, a role that has served me well on Eleanor Ashworth's charitable committee. What I saw that evening, I did not understand until now, and even now, I cannot prove what it means. But the details remain vivid, etched into my memory with the precision of a finely cut gem. Act 1. The Clean Hands. It was during the pause between the fish course and the main that Reginald Farrow excused himself from the table. His departure was unremarkable at first, a minor disruption in the flow of the evening, but as the minutes ticked by, his absence became more pronounced. I was seated directly opposite his empty chair, and the conversation, once directed at him, now required my guidance to continue. When Farrow returned, I noticed his hands. They were clean, impeccably so, with the particular dryness that comes from recent washing. The faint redness at his knuckles suggested a thorough scrubbing, not the casual cleanliness of a man who had merely avoided touching anything. It struck me as odd, given his claim that he had been in the garden. The garden, after all, was a sodden mess, courtesy of the rain that had been falling since 4 in the afternoon. In retrospect, those 11 minutes of his absence took on a new significance. Farrow had used that time to access the smoking room, a place momentarily unoccupied as the household staff attended to the dinner service. There he prepared the decanter. He washed his hands, ensuring no trace of his actions lingered on his skin. And then he returned to the table, slipping seamlessly back into the evening's rhythm. The memory of those clean hands has haunted me since they found Gerald Ashworth. I cannot stop thinking about where Farrow had been and what he had done. The image is as clear to me now as it was then, a detail that refuses to be ignored. Act 2. The Clock Watcher. As dessert was served, my attention shifted to Edmund Crane. He was seated with a direct line of sight to the mantelpiece clock, and I couldn't help but notice his repeated glances. The first might have been idle, a casual check of the hour, but the second glance was deliberate, and by the third, I was certain it was more than mere curiosity driving his attention. The fourth glance came at 11 minutes past 9, and with it, a subtle change in Crane's demeanor. There was a fractional settling in his posture, the kind that speaks of an internal countdown reaching its conclusion. It was the physical register of a man who had been waiting for something specific, a moment that had now arrived. In the days since, I have pondered what that moment meant to Crane. I do not know what transpired at 11 minutes past 9, but I am certain it was significant. The way he watched the clock was not the idle observation of a man passing time. It was the focused attention of someone with a purpose, a goal that had been met. The image of Crane's watchfulness lingers, a puzzle piece that refuses to fit neatly into the official narrative. I find myself replaying the scene, counting the glances alongside my memory, searching for the meaning behind them. Act 3. The Wrong Decanter. It was a small detail, one that might have gone unnoticed had I not been so attuned to the subtleties of the evening. At approximately 6:45, during the pre-dinner drinks, I passed the smoking room doorway on my way from the cloakroom back to the gathering. The door was ajar, and the side table was visible. On it sat a decanter, approximately 2/3 full, the amber of aged whiskey catching the lamplight. Later that evening, as the gentlemen retired to the smoking room, I passed the doorway again. The decanter on the side table was the same shape, but the fill level was different, higher than it had been. A decanter does not refill itself between pre-dinner drinks and after-dinner port. The change was subtle but unmistakable, a quiet anomaly in an otherwise ordinary evening. In retrospect, the decanter had been replaced. The one I saw at 6:45 was the original, and the one I saw later was the preparation. Farrow, during his 11-minute absence, had substituted the decanter containing Ashworth's customary tonic with one he had prepared in advance. The original was removed, and the replacement was in place before the dinner concluded. Ashworth drank from the replacement before anyone left the smoking room that night. This image, the decanter with its altered fill level, is the final piece of the puzzle that I cannot ignore. It is the detail that ties together the evening's events in a way that the official investigation never considered. Yet, it is also the detail that I did not share, because no one asked me the right questions. Closing. The question: I have told you what I saw. I have not told you what it means because I cannot prove what it means. But there is a man who does not require proof at the moment of observation. He requires only the behavioral detail and the patience to follow it to its conclusion. That man has the full account. It is waiting on Amazon. I should have told the official investigation about the decanter. But they never asked me what I saw when I passed that doorway. They only asked me if I had a pleasant evening. I told them I did. I was not lying, not then. The evening at Caldwell Manor remains a mystery, a series of observations that suggest a deeper truth. The answer is out there, waiting to be uncovered, and perhaps, with the right questions, the truth will finally be revealed. Chapter 6. Retrospective Realization. 3 days had passed since the dinner at Caldwell Manor, yet the evening's events played on a loop in Sarah Langley's mind. She sat by her writing desk, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows across the room. Her thoughts were a tangled web of observations that refused to fit the official narrative. Reginald Farrow's immaculate hands, Edmund Crane's clock watching, and the mysterious decanter switch. Each detail was a piece of a puzzle she couldn't quite assemble. As she reflected, the weight of her silence became apparent. She had been a witness, yet her role felt diminished by the investigation's narrow questions. They hadn't asked the right ones, leaving her observations unspoken. The realization that her insights could have altered the course of the inquiry gnawed at her. She was not a detective, but her natural attentiveness had captured moments others had overlooked. Sarah's internal conflict deepened as she acknowledged the limitations of her perspective. The truth, she realized, was not just about what was seen, but how it was interpreted. Her clarity was both enlightening and frustrating, a reminder of the gap between perception and understanding. She knew the implications of her silence were significant, yet the path to proving them was elusive. Despite her frustration, Sarah's realization was a catalyst. It set the stage for the unresolved questions that lingered, urging her to seek answers beyond her own recollections. The full story awaited her, and the architecture of that evening demanded a deeper exploration. The complete account was out there, waiting on Amazon, promising to bridge the gap her observations had left open. Introduction. Sarah Langley sat in her study, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. Her notes and sketches from the dinner party at Caldwell Manor lay scattered around her, each page a piece of a puzzle she was determined to solve. She cradled a cup of lukewarm tea in her hands, its warmth long gone, much like the clarity she sought. The air was thick with the weight of unsolved mystery, and Sarah's mind was a whirl of thoughts, each competing for attention. Revisiting the dinner, as she stared at her notes, Sarah's mind drifted back to the dinner party, replaying the events with meticulous care. Each guest's behavior was a thread in a tapestry she was trying to unravel. Her thoughts lingered on Reginald Farrow, whose hands were conspicuously clean for a man claiming to have been in the garden. The rain had been relentless since 4 in the afternoon, and yet his hands bore no trace of it. Then there was Edmund Crane, whose fixation on the clock seemed more than just casual glances. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo in her memory, a rhythm that hinted at something more. The smoking room. Sarah's thoughts wandered to the smoking room, a place she had only glimpsed briefly. The decanter's changing fill level gnawed at her, a detail too small to ignore. She recalled the way the light refracted through the glass, the shadows shifting subtly, creating an eerie stillness that seemed to whisper secrets. Her sketches attempted to capture these images, as if by drawing them she could unlock the truth her memory insisted was there. The internal conflict. As Sarah pieced together these observations, a growing unease settled over her. Her instincts screamed that something was amiss, yet the official narrative dismissed her insights as irrelevant. This internal conflict was a storm within her, a battle between what she knew and what she was told. She questioned her reliability as a witness, the value of her silence weighing heavily on her conscience. Her frustration was palpable, the burden of unspoken truths a constant presence. The puzzle comes together. In a moment of clarity, Sarah saw the connections between the guests' behaviors and the changes in the environment. The dinner party was more than just a social gathering. It was a stage for something clandestine. The realization hit her with a mix of excitement and dread, knowing that revealing her suspicions could have serious consequences. Yet the pieces fit together too well to ignore, each observation a cog in a larger mechanism, emotional resolution. Sarah acknowledged her role as both observer and participant in the unfolding mystery. She decided to document her findings, even if only for herself, as a way to preserve the truth she perceived. This decision marked a turning point in her personal journey, as she embraced her observations as valid and significant, despite their contradictions with the official account. Her resolve was firm, her path clear, even if the destination remained shrouded in uncertainty. Transition to next chapter. As the rain fell outside her study window, its rhythmic sound mirrored Sarah's contemplative state. The world beyond seemed distant, the rain a curtain between her and the mysteries of Caldwell Manor. Yet, the allure of the full story beckoned, unresolved questions driving her forward. The answers lay just beyond reach, and Sarah knew she had to keep exploring, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. The clean hands, at approximately 8:45 in the evening, Reginald Farrow excused himself from the table. Sarah noted his absence, her eyes drawn to the empty chair opposite her. When he returned, she noticed his hands, clean, almost scrubbed, with a faint redness at the knuckles. The rain outside made his claim of visiting the garden implausible. In retrospect, those 11 minutes took on new significance, a window of opportunity for Farrow to access the smoking room and prepare the decanter. The clock watcher. During the dessert course, Sarah's attention shifted to Edmund Crane. His repeated glances at the mantelpiece clock were deliberate, each glance a marker in an unseen countdown. At 11 minutes past 9, his posture changed, a subtle settling that signaled a moment of importance. This was not the idle checking of time. It was the precision of a man waiting for something specific. In retrospect, it was clear that Crane was timing the evening against a predetermined schedule. The wrong decanter. Sarah recalled passing the smoking room twice, noting the change in the decanter's fill level. The first time, the decanter was 2/3 full, the amber liquid catching the light beautifully. The second time, it was fuller, impossibly so. A decanter does not refill itself, and this discrepancy lingered in her mind, a question without an answer. In retrospect, it was clear that the decanter had been replaced, a detail that carried more weight than she initially realized. Retrospective realization. 3 days after the dinner, Sarah reflected on her observations, piecing together the puzzle of the evening. The official narrative did not account for what she saw, and this dissonance gnawed at her. She struggled with the knowledge that her silence had allowed a false conclusion to stand. Yet, her observations were undeniable, each detail a thread in the tapestry of truth. The unanswered question. Sarah's narrative concluded with her unresolved understanding of the night's events. She acknowledged the limitations of her observations, the unanswered questions that remained. Yet, she could not shake the feeling that she held pieces of a larger puzzle, pieces that could illuminate the truth, if only she could fit them together. Her final decision was to document everything, a record of what she saw and what it might mean. The rain continued to fall as Sarah turned her gaze back to her notes, the allure of the full story driving her forward. The answers lay just beyond reach, and she knew she had to keep exploring, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. Sarah Langley sat alone in her study, the quiet hum of the city outside barely audible over the ticking of the clock on her wall. It was 3 days since the dinner at Caldwell Manor, and the weight of her observations pressed heavily on her mind. She sat at her desk, a single lamp casting a pool of light over a scattered array of notes and sketches she had made during and after that fateful evening. Her mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, each one pulling her deeper into the mystery she had unwittingly become part of. As she sat there, Sarah's thoughts drifted back to the dinner party, revisiting each moment with a sharper focus. She recalled Reginald Farrow's unusually clean hands and Edmund Crane's obsessive clock-watching, each detail now tinged with a sense of foreboding. These were not just idle observations, they were pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit the official narrative, that had since emerged. The investigation had concluded, but Sarah's mind was far from settled. The dinner at Caldwell Manor had been a grand affair, the kind where every detail was meticulously planned. The ambiance was one of understated elegance, with the soft glow of candlelight illuminating the richly decorated dining room. Sarah had been seated opposite Reginald Farrow, a man whose presence was as polished as his appearance. Yet it was his absence that had caught her attention. During the pause between the fish course and the main, Farrow had excused himself. He was gone for exactly 11 minutes, a fact Sarah noted because she had to redirect a conversation that had been aimed at him. When Farrow returned, Sarah noticed his hands. They were clean in a way that seemed incongruent with his claim of having been in the garden. The particular dryness of recently scrubbed skin and the faint redness at the knuckles suggested he had been somewhere with a basin. This observation lingered in her mind, a small but significant detail that refused to be ignored. As the evening progressed, Sarah's attention shifted to Edmund Crane. During the dessert course, she noticed Crane's repeated glances at the mantelpiece clock. It wasn't the casual glance of someone checking the time. It was the deliberate attention of a man waiting for a specific moment. Sarah had developed a habit over the years of tracking the attention of those around her, a skill honed in countless committee meetings. The first glance might have been idle, but the second was deliberate. The third confirmed it, and the fourth, at 11 minutes past 9, produced a specific change in Crane's posture. He settled into his chair with the air of a man whose internal countdown had reached its conclusion. These observations, while seemingly minor, gnawed at Sarah's subconscious. They were pieces of a larger puzzle, one that she was beginning to see but could not yet fully understand. Her mind replayed the evening's events, searching for connections, for meaning. It was a process of deduction that was both empowering and paralyzing. She felt the weight of being an unreliable witness, questioning the validity of her observations and wondering if her mind had played tricks on her. Her introspection was laced with self-doubt and frustration. She grappled with the fear that her silence had inadvertently contributed to a larger deception. The official investigation had closed, yet Sarah's insights could potentially alter its conclusions. The realization was a double-edged sword, offering both clarity and uncertainty. As she pieced together the timeline of events, Sarah identified inconsistencies that pointed to a deeper conspiracy. The decanter in the smoking room was another detail that refused to be ignored. She recalled passing the room twice, once during the pre-dinner drinks and again later in the evening. The decanter she saw at 6:45 was approximately two-thirds full, but later it was nearly full. A decanter does not refill itself, she mused, and this realization added another layer to the mystery. The narrative of that evening, as Sarah reconstructed it, was one of subtlety and deception. Each observation, each detail, was a thread in a tapestry that was slowly revealing itself. The official narrative had overlooked these threads, but to Sarah, they were the key to understanding what had truly transpired. Standing before the window, staring out into the night, Sarah acknowledged the limitations of her perspective. She was not the detective, nor the killer. She was the observer the investigation had overlooked. Yet, she resolved to act, to shift from a passive observer to an active participant. This moment of clarity, fraught with uncertainty, set the stage for the unresolved questions that would propel her forward. The chapter leaves the audience on the edge, eager to uncover the full story and understand Sarah's ultimate decision. As she turned away from the window, the weight of her observations still heavy on her mind, she knew that the path ahead was uncertain. But she also knew that she could no longer remain silent. The truth, hidden in the gaps between what was seen and what was reported, was waiting to be uncovered. In questioning her role, Sarah Langley's internal conflict becomes the heart of the narrative. Her growth from a silent observer to someone questioning her complicity is central to the plot, highlighting the weight of truth and perception as tangible forces driving the story towards its climax. This chapter ensures a logical flow from the previous events while setting up the intrigue for what is to come in the unfolding mystery. As the chapter concludes, Sarah's resolve is clear. She may not have all the answers, but she understands that her observations are crucial. The official investigation may have overlooked her, but she knows that the truth lives in the details she has pieced together. With this newfound clarity, Sarah stands ready to face whatever comes next, her role no longer in question. Chapter 7: The Unanswered Question. In the quiet aftermath of the dinner party, as the embers of the evening's conversations still smoldered in her mind, Sarah Langley found herself grappling with the enigmatic tapestry of events she had witnessed. The night at Caldwell Manor had ended, but its mysteries lingered, casting long shadows over her thoughts. She had observed, noted, and filed away details that, at the time, seemed inconsequential. Yet now, 3 days later, those details refused to align with the official narrative. Sarah's reflections were marked by a blend of resignation and determination. She understood the limits of her observations. The clean hands of Reginald Farrow, the clock-watching of Edmund Crane, and the curious case of the decanter. Each observation was a piece of a puzzle she couldn't fully assemble. Her memory was precise, her recall vivid, yet the truth remained elusive, hidden in the spaces between what was seen and what was understood. Despite the uncertainty, Sarah's resolve did not waver. She accepted that the complete truth might forever elude her grasp, but she remained committed to uncovering whatever answers she could. This was not merely about solving a mystery, it was about the pursuit of truth, about giving voice to the unspoken and the overlooked. As Sarah concluded her narrative, she extended an invitation to the reader, a call to action to explore the full case file on Amazon. There, the architecture of that fateful evening, reconstructed by Maxwell Vane, awaited. The answers that eluded Sarah might be found within those pages. The questions she posed lingered, urging the curious to delve deeper and discover what truly transpired at Caldwell Manor. In the dim glow of a single lamp, I sat at my writing desk, the quiet of the evening, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of paper as I turned a page in my open journal. It was November 1932, and the air outside Caldwell Manor was crisp with the promise of winter. As I sat there, I found myself reflecting on the events of the recent dinner party, the night that had left a lingering unease in my mind. The official investigation had concluded, but I was not satisfied. What I had witnessed did not fit neatly within the tidy conclusions reached by those who questioned us. I am not a detective, nor do I claim to be. I am merely an observer, a guest who noticed 3 things that evening. Things that, even now, I cannot quite reconcile. It was not until 3 days after the party that I began to piece together the significance of what I had seen. I am going to tell you what I noticed. You can decide what it means. The clean hands. The dinner table at Caldwell Manor was a picture of elegance, set for 8 with gleaming silverware and crisp white linen. The warmth of the room was punctuated by the soft clink of cutlery and the gentle murmur of conversation. It was during the pause between the fish course and the main that Reginald Farrow excused himself. I remember it vividly because his absence left an empty chair directly across from me, and I found myself redirecting a conversation that had been meant for him. 11 minutes later, he returned, and it was then that I noticed his hands. They were clean, too clean for a man who claimed to have been in the garden. The rain had been falling steadily since late afternoon, and yet his hands bore the particular dryness of recently scrubbed skin, a faint redness at the knuckles betraying the use of soap and water. He had not been in the garden. He had been somewhere with a basin. Since they found Gerald Ashworth dead, I have thought about those hands every day. I cannot stop thinking about where Farrow had been. The clock watcher. As dessert was served, my attention shifted to Edmund Crane. Seated with a clear view of the mantelpiece clock, he checked the time 4 times in rapid succession. The first glance might have been idle, but the second was deliberate. By the third, I was certain he was waiting for something. The 4th glance came at precisely 11 minutes past 9, and with it, a subtle change in his posture. He settled back, a fractional movement that spoke of a man whose internal countdown had reached its mark. In retrospect, Crane was timing the evening against a schedule known only to him. At 11 minutes past 9, something either had happened or was about to happen that required his attention before the gentleman retired to the smoking room. The tonic had been prepared, the mechanism set. The remainder of the evening simply needed to proceed. I do not know what 11 minutes past 9 meant to Edmund Crane. I know it meant something. And I know the shape of a man who has been waiting for a specific moment and has just been told it has arrived. The wrong decanter. Earlier that evening, during the pre-dinner drinks, I passed the smoking room doorway on my way from the cloakroom to the drawing room. The door was ajar, and I noted a decanter on the side table, its amber liquid catching the lamplight. It was 2/3 full, a pleasant domestic detail that I registered almost unconsciously. Later, when the gentleman retired, I passed the doorway again. The decanter was the same shape, but the fill level was higher. A decanter does not refill itself between the pre-dinner drinks and the after-dinner port. The decanter had been replaced. The one I saw at 6:45 was the original. The one I saw later was the preparation. During his 11-minute absence, Farrow had substituted Ashworth's customary tonic with one he had prepared in advance. The original was removed, and the replacement was in place before the dinner concluded. Ashworth drank from the replacement before anyone left the smoking room that night. This is the image that lingers in my mind. A decanter does not refill itself. Then the silence, retrospective realization. 3 days after the dinner, I sat with these observations, trying to piece together the puzzle of that evening. What I saw did not fit the official narrative, and I began to question my role as a witness. I had told the investigators I had a pleasant evening and noticed nothing unusual. This was not a lie. At the time, I had not yet reconstructed the significance of what I saw. But now, as I replayed the evening in my mind, I could not shake the feeling that these details, these seemingly minor observations, held the key to understanding what truly happened. The unanswered question. As I conclude this account, I find myself grappling with the limitations of my observations. I have told you what I saw, but I cannot tell you what it means because I cannot prove what it means. There is a man, however, who does not require proof at the moment of observation. He requires only the behavioral detail and the patience to follow it to its conclusion. That man has the full account. It is waiting on Amazon. I should have told the official investigation about the decanter, but they never asked me what I saw when I passed that doorway. They only asked me if I had a pleasant evening. I told them I did. I was not lying. Not then. Sarah Langley sat in her dimly lit study, the soft glow of a single lamp casting long shadows across the walls. The room was a sanctuary of sorts, a place where thoughts could be gathered and examined without intrusion. Before her lay an array of notes and sketches, each one a fragment of the evening at Caldwell Manor, a dinner party that had transformed from a social engagement into a labyrinthine puzzle. Her eyes lingered on a particular sketch, the smoking room with its decanter and clock, drawn in a moment of clarity that now seemed both revelatory and confounding. As Sarah sifted through her observations, a wave of emotion swept over her. Frustration gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the elusive answers she sought. Yet, beneath the frustration lay a steely determination to unearth the truth, no matter how deeply it was buried. A flicker of fear also danced at the edges of her consciousness, a fear of what truths might emerge from the shadows. Her mind replayed the evening's events, each interaction and anomaly scrutinized for hidden significance. It was a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit, a mystery that taunted her with its incompleteness. Then a memory surfaced, a conversation overheard between Reginald Farrow and Edmund Crane. At the time, she had dismissed it as inconsequential, but now it resonated with an unsettling tension. Their words, once innocuous, now carried the weight of a veiled threat, a subtle undercurrent that she had previously overlooked. This revelation ignited a spark within her, a transformation from passive observer to active investigator. It was a call to action, a challenge to the narrative that had been so neatly packaged by the official investigation. Her narrative voice shifted, shedding uncertainty for resolve. While she might not possess all the answers, she held enough insight to question the official story, to peel back the layers and expose the truth. Her internal monologue became a rallying cry, urging herself and the readers to delve deeper into the mystery that enveloped Caldwell Manor. Determined to take the next step, Sarah began drafting a letter to a trusted confidant, someone who shared her passion for truth and had the resources to assist in her investigation. The act of writing was cathartic, a symbolic commitment to pursuing the truth despite the risks it entailed. Her pen moved with purpose, each word a testament to her resolve. As the subchapter drew to a close, Sarah stood by the window, gazing out into the night. The moon cast a gentle glow, bathing her in a light that seemed almost otherworldly. In that moment, she felt a calm determination, a sense of peace in the decision she had made. Her final thoughts turned to the readers, inviting them to explore the full case file on Amazon, promising that the answers they sought were within reach. This pivotal moment marked Sarah's transition from a passive observer to an active seeker of truth. Her journey encapsulated the emotional spectrum of doubt, realization, and resolve, setting the stage for a deeper exploration of the case. The narrative, rich in storytelling, drew readers into Sarah's world, leaving them eager to accompany her on her quest for truth. As Sarah Langley sat at her study desk, the quiet of the room was broken only by the soft scratching of her pen across paper. The notes she had compiled since the dinner at Caldwell Manor lay scattered around her, a testament to her meticulous nature and her growing obsession with the evening's events. Her mind returned to the sketch of the smoking room, the decanter, and the clock, a trifecta of mysteries that had become the focal point of her inquiry. Each element of that sketch was imbued with meaning, a symbol of her unresolved questions and the key to her next steps. The smoking room, with its air of quiet opulence, had been a silent witness to a night that was anything but ordinary. The decanter, with its amber contents, was more than just a vessel for spirits, it was a vessel of secrets. And the clock, its hands frozen in time, was a reminder of moments that had slipped through her fingers, moments she was now determined to reclaim. As she reviewed her observations, a mix of emotions coursed through her: frustration at the lack of concrete answers, determination to pursue the truth, and a hint of fear at what she might uncover. Her mind raced through the events of the dinner, the interactions she witnessed, and the anomalies she noted. Each detail felt significant, yet elusive, like pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. Then came the crucial turning point, a conversation she had overheard between Reginald Farrow and Edmund Crane. Initially dismissed as inconsequential, it now resonated with an undercurrent of tension, a veiled threat she had overlooked. This revelation ignited a spark within her, transforming her passive observations into a call to action. Her narrative voice shifted from uncertainty to resolve. She acknowledged that while she may not have all the answers, she possessed enough insight to challenge the official narrative. Her internal monologue became a rallying cry, urging herself, and by extension the readers, to delve deeper into the mystery. Determined to act, Sarah drafted a letter to a trusted confidant, someone who shared her passion for truth and had the resources to assist in her investigation. This act symbolized her commitment to uncovering the truth, despite the personal and professional risks involved. As the subchapter closed, Sarah stood at her window, looking out into the night. The moonlight bathed her in a soft glow, and she felt a sense of calm determination. Her final thoughts were directed at the readers, inviting them to explore the full case file on Amazon, promising that the answers they seek are within reach. This subchapter is essential as it marks Sarah's transition from passive observer to active investigator. It encapsulates the emotional journey of doubt, realization, and resolve, setting the stage for the deeper exploration of the case that awaits in the full ebook. The narrative maintains its storytelling tone, drawing readers into Sarah's world and leaving them eager to follow her quest for truth.
Case File 1 is closed. What the matter of the smoking room demonstrated was this: the most carefully constructed alibi is always built by more than one person, and the moment it requires more than one person to maintain it, it contains the seed of its own collapse. That is the signature the Glitch Bureau looks for in every archive. Not the obvious answer, the one hiding just beneath the coordinated version of events. Maxwell Vane has the full account. Get the ebook now on Amazon. Link in the description. The next case file opens Wednesday.